Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is truly heartening to see the hall so full, the air alive with energy and anticipation. Before we begin, please allow me to introduce myself again. I am Priyasha Dikshit, a researcher at the National Maritime Foundation, and I'm proud to be your host for this event. It's often said that pictures speak louder than words. So, as we transition into the formal proceedings of the day, let's set the stage for our deliberations by taking a quick look at this sessional video, which will briefly take us through matters to be discussed in the forthcoming session.
Lines drawn on a map are always clean, but the real world has currents that a map can't capture. A border on paper can't hold back a cyclone. Merely having a coastline doesn't make it resilient. The Indo-Pacific has always been more than its coordinates. It is lived in, nurtured, and thriving. Here, capacity builds the grid, but capability gives it scale. Welcome to Day 1 of the Indo-Pacific Regional Dialogue 2025, where strategy is charted through latitude in thought and plotted through meridians of cooperation. We begin by bringing apex-level focus to our deliberations and are reminded that maritime strategy is neither crafted alone nor built overnight. It is cultivated through collaboration, shaped by trust, and strengthened through the will to build, share, and grow together. As this vision sets the tone, the dialogue opens with a question that transcends geography. How can nations ensure maritime security when the seas themselves are shifting? As oceans become both highway and hazard, maritime security now depends as much on climate foresight as on naval force. It calls for cooperative endeavor where technology, training, and trust travel together. For a map defined not by ownership, but by alignment, where infrastructure, information, and intent all share the same legend. How can we build capacity to create strength and enhance capability to ensure that this strength endures? Across the Indo-Pacific, 4 regions share one tide: climate change. In Japan, where tectonic plates and tempests constantly redraw the shoreline, the armed forces learn to scale their response to the storm, balancing defense readiness with disaster relief. On this map, adaptation becomes its own axis. Indonesia's islands hold lessons satellites can't ever hope to communicate. When every reef and channel becomes a coordinate of community, local knowledge becomes a living contour, proof that capability is as much human as it is technical. For South Africa, regional networks like AIMS 2050 become the new grid lines, tracing how shared drills and data can turn scattered efforts into a continent-wide projection of stability. And in Bangladesh's low-lying deltas, where every monsoon redraws the boundaries, preparedness becomes a daily act of cartography, mapping shelters, routes, and response systems anew each year. Where resilience is measured not in defenses, but in recovery from the daily onslaught of climate change. Together, these perspectives remind us to see climate cooperation not as charity, but as collective insurance for the future of maritime security. As we unfold the map, hierarchies dissolve and the conversation widens. Hosted by the Director General of the National Maritime Foundation, Chopal Ki Charcha evokes dialogue without the weight of formal diplomacy. Here, candor predominates as leading authorities from Germany, BIMSTEC, France, and the Netherlands each bring the realism of governance to the idealism of dialogue. How do we translate intent into infrastructure, technology into trust, climate commitments into command readiness? Watch as capacity meets capability without ceremony, and the coordinates of cooperation are recharted in real time. As the day draws to a close, we are reminded that maritime security isn't fixed by lines of control, but by lines of communication. policy must build infrastructure that adapts and partnerships that endure. Because the map is not the territory, and no single nation can hold the tide alone.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now formally begin the proceedings for the Indo-Pacific Regional Dialogue 2025. We now step into the inaugural session. It is my privilege to invite the Director General of the National Maritime Foundation, Vice Admiral Pradeep Chauhan, AVSM and BAR, VSM, to set the stage for IPRD 2025 by sharing an overview of what lies ahead in the sessions to come.
Excellencies, friends, ladies and gentlemen, I feel fairly comfortable being here, not because I've been there and done that a couple of times on the IPRD before, but because I am generally comfortable in the company of so many of you whom I know well and who have known me well over the many years of our existence together. So please allow me to echo, first of all, the welcome afforded to each one of you by our MC, the charming Miss Priyasha Dikshit, and if you will join me in giving her a hand, she'll be happy to conduct the rest of the ceremony. Otherwise, there's every chance that she'll get offended and go home and we'll be stuck. Let me begin by reiterating that the Indo-Pacific Regional Dialogue is the generic name given to a series of apex-level conferences organized annually by the Indian Navy in seamless coordination with the Navy's knowledge partner, the National Maritime Foundation. Now, we have in our midst today a very large number of very senior officers of not only the Navy, but the Army and the Air Force. We have a fair representation of the top minds of the Indo-Pacific. And to one and all, please allow me to bid you fair welcome. All of us present in this somewhat splendid auditorium, including the ones at the back whom I hope can hear me, we recognize full well that the contemporary maritime dynamic of this vast and predominantly maritime expanse known as the Indo-Pacific is currently dominated by the games, the moves, the counter moves of a number of powers. Some of these are ascending powers. Some of them are declining powers, struggling to arrest diminishing demographic statistics, if not reverse it. Others are both nation states and collectives that are engaged in attempting to ensure a status quoist situation prevailing within the Indo-Pacific. And yet others are formulating and executing strategies that are disruptive in nature, seeking to upend the entire process that we have all worked so hard to actually put together, and which is what we commonly know as the rules-based order. This rules-based order is a series of behavioral norms. Some of these are legally binding, some of these are legally non-binding, some of these are merely agreements amongst gentlemen and ladies. And all of them put together formulate and create this whole business of a rules-based order. Many people are under the mistaken impression, distressingly large number, of people are under the mistaken impression that UNCLOS, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea of 1982, is the sole treaty that determines state behavior in the maritime domain. This is not true, of course. Many conventions predate the UNCLOS and remain in force. For example, many of you, all of you, will be aware that the International Maritime Organization is not merely an executive body of people. It is a convention that was ratified after it was signed by the requisite number of state parties. So too is the case with the International Convention for the Prevention of Collisions at Sea, what many naval officers here know as ROR, or many others know as COLREGs. But COLREGs and ROR are not just rules that we have to swat over and pass exams with. They are conventions. This is a convention, and it was duly signed and duly ratified by all countries, including those that seek today to create narrower and differing approaches to the whole business of the rules-based order. So insofar as India is concerned, the contemporary spatial extent of the Indo-Pacific, which we are here to discuss, expansively covers the stretch from the eastern seaboard of Africa, encompassing West Asia in its totality, moving right across the whole of the Indian Ocean, which I would recommend that we call the western segment of the Indo-Pacific, and then stretching in to what we must call the eastern segment of the Indo-Pacific, namely the Pacific Ocean, and then expanding itself both north and south to encompass East Asia and the countries of Northeast Asia, Japan, both the Koreas, China, and of course Pacific Russia, which I'm happy to inform you, having just returned recently from a trip to Moscow, is veering around to more and more of its people utilizing the term Indo-Pacific, recognizing that as the future, immediate future of Russia tends to veer towards China, the centrality that Vladivostok enjoys will keep rising. And therefore, one of the things that we must think about in the next 3 days is, even when we do not appreciate or endorse anything that Russia is doing in terms of its adventures or misadventures in the Ukraine, which is the Russia that we should talk to? Is it Moscow or is it Vladivostok? Whom should we be speaking to? And these are areas and issues that we hope to be able to cover in the 3 days that we have available to us. Also, within this whole Indo-Pacific, we are encountering a heady mix of cooperation, of collaboration, of competition, and very frequently of very near confrontation. Luckily, we have not slid all the way down towards conflict. But it is some slide that we must arrest for ourselves so that we do not go down that path. A number of civilizational states, India, China, Iran, are all reasserting their civilizational identities and seeking a place in the sun alongside equally old civilizational entities such as Japan. How are these to be managed? What should we be doing to ensure that cooperation and collaboration trump confrontation and conflict? How should we go about this? What should we go back and tell our governments? This is what we need to do. What is that this? And over the next 3 days, one of the main thrust lines of our endeavor will be precisely to do this business of listening and thereafter of recommending and advising governmental echelons. All of us in this IPRD are engaged in policy shaping, hopefully policy making, and policy is always made and shaped by government, although the triggers for policy may well come from the lay public and society at large. So over the 3 days that we have with us, we began by asserting the fact that we are agile. We are the maritime practitioners of a maritime space, and agility and versatility are the cornerstones of our character. Let me try and bring that down to today. If I can ask for the revised program to be put up on the screen behind me, you will see that we were hoping to have the program running exactly as you were given only a few days ago. But ministerial confabulations are often mysterious ones as well. And so if the cabinet has suddenly decided to meet, we are forced to adapt. And so the adaptation that I seek to present before you is currently on your screen. So after this, we will have shifted upwards professional session 1, and then we will interject a tea break, because last year one of the feedbacks I got was that it's very difficult for everybody to sit through 3 hours with their legs crossed, increasingly tightly. And so we need to provide people a chance to have, if not an ingestion of tea, then at least a bio break. And then that will be followed by lunch, which we hope you will enjoy, but not to the extent that you fall asleep in the afternoon session, because we will have a special address by the Chief of the Naval Staff himself. Following that will be the Chaupal Ki Charcha. And then we have saved the pièce de la résistance for the end, because Dr. Christian Buger, who is a professor of international and global renown, and for whom the lineup for seeking his presence extends between New Delhi and Timbuktu, is actually here with us today and has agreed to talk to us as a special address on a subject entirely of his choice, and it will be as surprising to me as it will be to you in a delightful manner. So that's how the day will run. Tomorrow, we hope to be able to stay with the program that we have promulgated, and as a consequence of that, we may well have 1 or 2 changes on day 3, but we don't think that it is appropriate for us to be able to fit that in right away. One of the things that I do want to say is that it is very hard to get quite so luminescent a galaxy of speakers as we have managed in the Indo-Pacific Regional Dialogue 2025. You have their names and you have their biodatas. We have a set of panels, as you have already seen. And my request to all our moderators will be, don't waste time introducing your speakers. Name them, and then get straight into the subject, because each subject is meaty enough to be able to absorb the attention and the available time that has been allotted. My last point, in terms of an overview, the beauty of the IPRD lies in the numbers of people that it can attract. And the IPRD is positioned as the maritime supplement within India of the Raisina Dialogue. So the Raisina Dialogue has its place, and yet we need to find an organizational structure in each of our countries which will enable our 38,000 helicopter view plane to land without crash and burn. And in the maritime domain, this is it. This is that structure. So the numbers involved at the NMF, at the IPRD by the NMF is critical. For that reason, we have taken special pains to invite as many members of India's academia, both those in the faculty and even more so those who are students, to come and listen to the manner in which India will seek to contribute to the upliftment of the Indo-Pacific region as a whole. When we talk about this Indo-Pacific region as a whole, many people say, how much is it? And we say, well, you know, from the east coast of the African continent all the way to the west coast of the Americas, and from the southern coastline of the Eurasian continent all the way down to Antarctica. So guys say, excuse me, Admiral, that's a huge expanse. Do you have any resources? And we normally say, I don't know, guys, what should we do? Should we cut our coat according to the cloth that we want and that we have, just like mommy and daddy told us? Or should we weave the cloth according to the coat that we want? And the guys say, wow, Admiral, that's a neat turn of phrase. Clearly you can speak English. But it still needs resources. Do you have resources? And here, I would like the students in particular to bear in mind the difference between capacity and capability. Capacity is this auditorium. Capacity is a ship. Capacity is a hospital. Capacity is an aircraft. Capacity is a submarine, a drone, a dockyard. All this is capacity. You take this auditorium, great capacity. Fill it with idiots, you have no capability. Capability is the human skill, the human genius, the organizational ability, the legal framework that will allow you to maximize the capacity you have. You have only zero patrol craft? Well, I'm going to give you a patrol craft. Wow, I have doubled your capacity. Do you know how to operate the patrol craft? Do you know how to deploy it? Have you got a life cycle costing for it? Is there a op-com refit cycle? Do you have a training system? Do you have a legal framework? Yes, 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 and yes. Wow, you have capacity. No, 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 and no. You have capability. No, 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 and no. I'm afraid you only have a liability. So what we need from you is the ability to leverage your capability. And that capability rests with the young generations as much as it does with the older ones. So this business of the specific area of the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative that this IPRD seeks to address and flesh out is capacity building, capability enhancement. Some of us have excess capacity. Let's throw capacity at the problem. Some of us have enough capability. Then we should throw capability at a problem. There's no use playing a game of cards with the weakest suit in your hand. Play with your strong suit. Play with capability. Join us. This is a madcap venture that we're doing for the last 7 years. Join us in every respect. Be one more of the Don Quixotes. Tilt away at windmills. We will get all our governments to cooperate, to collaborate, rather than to compete and confront. I think I'd better stop there and hand over the proceedings back to our very charming, still charming, Ms. Priyasha Dixit. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm now honored to invite Admiral Karambir Singh, PVSM, AVSM, former Chief of the Naval Staff and the incumbent Chairman of the National Maritime Foundation, to deliver his inaugural address. Please join me in giving a big hand to Admiral Karambir Singh.
Thank you so much, Priyasha. Dignitaries on and off the days. Vice Chief is here. Welcome to IPRD. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's both an honor and a privilege to welcome you all to the 2025 edition of the Indo-Pacific Regional Dialogue, the Indian Navy's annual apex level international conference. It's a platform for exchange of maritime thought and strategy. Also, at the very outset, I wish to express my gratitude to the Chief of Naval Staff and the Indian Navy for their continuing trust in the National Maritime Foundation as the Navy's knowledge partner for this dialogue. The NMF cherishes this partnership as both a privilege and a responsibility. A responsibility to ensure that each iteration of the IPRD adds meaningful layers of intellectual rigor and actionable policy relevance to India's maritime engagement with the world. So today, there's a lot of pessimism in the air because of the geopolitics prevailing, but I'm going to speak on a positive note. It's not that I'm not aware of the problems that exist, but the fact that the topic is about the capacity building and capability enhancement, which requires us to collaborate, will make me speak in a very, very positive frame of mind, though I know for a fact that things are not as rosy as we would like it to be. So I'll start with the term Indo-Pacific, which has already been explained to you. The term Indo-Pacific today defines more than a set of coordinates on the map. It has become a strategic geography, a space where destinies of nations, big and small, are increasingly intertwined. And for India, Indo-Pacific is not a strategy directed against any country. It is instead a vision of shared peace, prosperity, and collaborative security, stretching, as you know, from all the geographical coordinates have already been explained to you. And of course, it's a well-known fact that this region carries almost 2/3 of global trade, contributes over 60% of the world's GDP, and is home to nearly 2/3 of humanity. Its seas, therefore, are the arteries of the global economy. When the Indo-Pacific prospers, the world prospers. Yet, like we all know, the same region is also marked by geopolitical turbulence, rivalries between major powers, contested claims, coercive practices, and the militarization of disputed waters has made the maritime environment increasingly complex. Add to this, of course, the growing weight of non-traditional challenges, and there's a long list: illegal fishing, piracy, narcotics, arms and human trafficking, climate change, rising sea levels, and pollution. And all this makes it very clear to us that security and growth in the region must be pursued together. And this dual pursuit of security and growth was at the heart of India's maritime policy of SAGAR, which is security and growth for all in the region, which today finds expression in MAHASAGAR, which is mutual and holistic advancement of security and growth across regions. Also, I want to draw your attention to the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative, which was announced by our Prime Minister in 2019. That Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative actually complements and gives shape and structure to this India's maritime policy of SAGAR or MAHASAGAR. And it had identified 7 interlinked pillars, ranging from marine ecology and disaster management to connectivity, resources, capacity and capability enhancement, which we are tackling today, maritime security and trade. And together, all these formed a web, or they form a web of collaboration that reflects how deeply our futures are connected. So each successive edition of the IPRD has sought to flesh out India's maritime policy a step further, to give it a kind of a practical direction by individually exploring each of IPOI's spokes or pillars. So we have completed 3 of them, and this is the 4th one, and therefore this year our focus, as is given here, is promoting holistic maritime security and growth through regional capacity building and capability enhancement. And the explanation has been given to you very eloquently by the Director General, but I personally feel that capacity and capability are the twin engines of maritime strength. While both are vital, in much of the Indo-Pacific, it is capability rather than capacity that remains a more urgent need, especially since it's perhaps this element that is easier to address, and it is here that collaboration, partnerships, and knowledge sharing can make a real and telling difference. Since we're going to discuss a lot about collaboration in this dialogue, I thought I'd dwell a bit on it. When we look at collaborative maritime architectures, it is important to note that in an oceanic theatre as vast as the Indo-Pacific, no nation, however powerful, can secure its maritime interests in isolation. The challenges we face, whether traditional or non-traditional, are trans-border by nature, and so, therefore, must be our responses. Collaborative security, therefore, is not an aspiration. It's an operational necessity, and our actions and responses, therefore, must be collective. And at the heart of this collaborative construct, actually, at least for India, lies a three-tiered architecture. At the conceptual level, we have policy frameworks like MAHASAGAR and the IPUI that define our intent. At the political level, we have regional groupings such as the IORA, the IOC, BIMSTEC. We are very happy to have Director General BIMSTEC in our midst. The Quad, East Asia Summit that translate this vision into policy. And at the executive level, we have operational frameworks like the IONS, Indian Ocean Naval Symposium, and the Western Pacific Naval Symposium that bring these seagoing agencies together. The IONS, for example, has emerged as a robust platform for dialogue, trust building, and coordinated action amongst the navies in the Indian Ocean littoral states. And as India resumes the chair of IONS, it would be our endeavor to, for instance, to strengthen the linkage with WPNS, to create a seamless continuum of collaboration from the Western Indian Ocean to the Pacific. So the goal is simple, to ensure that our collaborative maritime partnerships are not just well-intentioned, but are well-coordinated. That is the goal. That strategy and implementation move hand in hand. So, ladies and gentlemen, over the next 3 days, this dialogue will touch upon a wide array of issues. Allow me to highlight 4 or 5 focus areas that, in my view, deserve particular attention. First is maritime domain awareness. You know, the foundation of maritime security is awareness. We can only secure what we can see or are aware of. The IFC, IOR, and other IFCs in the region have already proven the value of information sharing. But the next step is to move from sharing data to sharing understanding, to build systems that can detect patterns, predict risks, and offer actionable insights in real time. Basically, we want to move from connectivity to predictability. So artificial intelligence and big data analytics and what have you will be critical enablers in this. Next focus area that I want to draw your attention to is the blue economy and the marine sustainability. Economic growth and maritime security are inseparable. Unsustainable exploitation of marine resources, overfishing, unregulated mining and pollution undermine both prosperity and stability. The Indo-Pacific should therefore, I think, consider a blue economy compact, one that integrates marine conservation, renewable ocean energy, sustainable fisheries, and circular economy principles. India's active participation in the International Solar Alliance, I think something is happening now as we speak, and the Coalition of Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, for instance, can provide strong starting points for regional collaboration. The third focus area that I would like to draw your attention to is human resource development, building maritime talent. Because hardware without humanware achieves little. Capability enhancement begins with people, with trained seafarers, scientists, engineers, and policymakers. So joint training, simulation exercises, and fellowships could build professional linkages that underpin real interoperability. And we could explore, again, regional maritime skills compact, the soon-to-be established Regional Maritime Security Center of Excellence, a collaborative endeavor between King's College London and NMF, I think is a step in this direction of improving humanware, as we've discussed. The fourth focus area that I would like you to draw your attention to is maritime infrastructure and supply chain resilience. We are aware of what the pandemic taught us about global supply chains. We need redundancy, diversification, and modern infrastructure. So capacity building, when we talk of, must literally mean building capacity. Ports, shipyards, logistics corridors, and coastal infrastructure that are resilient, secure, and sustainable. Collaborative financing, public-private partnerships, and regional investment frameworks can ensure that all nations advance together in this endeavor. And the last focus area, technology, innovation, and interoperability. We know what is happening in the technological domain, the transformation that is taking place from unmanned surface and underwater vehicles to autonomous logistics and digital twinning. This new frontier is as much about data and code as it is about steel and propellers. These advances bring new opportunities, but also new vulnerabilities. Cybersecurity at sea is now as critical as physical security. We recently had a cybersecurity conference run by the Navy, and it was extremely interesting to be a part of that. So to remain ahead, I think we need to collaborate and connect on our innovation ecosystems. Collaboration in R&D, especially in green shipbuilding, AI-enabled navigation, and maritime cybersecurity will define the contours of our future maritime capability. And our collective aim should be to share innovation, not hoard it. A very utopian thought is, why have technology with tethers, technology without tethers? Equally, interoperability, both human and technological, must remain a constant focus, and exercises such as IChemE, Malabar, and Milan, amongst several others, already demonstrate the power of partnerships. Expanding these to include capacity building modules, technology demonstrations, and common operating net frameworks would greatly enhance regional readiness. Ladies and gentlemen, at the heart of any collaboration, and which includes maritime collaboration, lies the human dimension of trust and transparency. And as they say, trust cannot be surged, cannot be built overnight. It grows through transparency, consistent engagement, and shared purpose. And it is this trust that will help us build something which we call the collective maritime competence in this region. Each nation or grouping in the Indo-Pacific region brings certain unique capabilities to the table, whether it is expertise, intelligence, technology, geographical location, assets, etc. We need to harness these unique competencies collaboratively to tackle common challenges together through building collective maritime competence in the region. In conclusion, I wish to say that as we look forward into the future, the Indo-Pacific region faces both peril and promise. The peril lies in fragmentation, in allowing mistrust, coercion, or environmental degradation to define our maritime destiny. The promise lies in integration, in building truly collaborative order rooted in mutual respect, inclusivity, and sustainability. And let us therefore visualize an Indo-Pacific where maritime boundaries are respected, but maritime partnerships transcend them. Growth is an Indo-Pacific where growth is not pursued at the cost of ecology, but through the stewardship of the ocean's commons. An Indo-Pacific where the smallest island state has as much voice in maritime governance as the largest continental power. And I think the IPRD is a step in that direction, a confluence of minds and a crucible of ideas. And I'm confident that the insights and recommendations emerging from this dialogue will help refine regional architectures, shape national strategies, and most importantly, inspire collective maritime action. And before I conclude, I wish to acknowledge with deep appreciation the distinguished speakers and panelists and participants who have traveled from across the globe to be with us today. Thank you so much. Your presence underlines a shared conviction that maritime peace and prosperity are global public goods worth safeguarding together. So let this conference reaffirm our collective belief that the Indo-Pacific must remain free, open, inclusive, and secure for generations to come. Thank you, and Jai Hind.